court here. Chief Justice John Roberts voted to save the president's health care law. He may have also saved the court from going down a partisan road, the same partisan road as the rest of Washington. Bob Herbert is the Distinguished Senior Fellow at the progressive think tank Demos. I think I got that right this time. Beth Fouhy is with the Associated Press, and of course Tom Brokaw is NBC's Grand Poobah. They have another title for you, but come on, you know, I think Poobah is better, right?
Old dude is how they refer to me around.
Well, let me ask you. So John Roberts, you know, we have all these. The legacy of John Roberts now, will it always be this decision until of course the next big decision? But how much of is suddenly this the Roberts decision?
Well, this is very much the Roberts decision, but we also have to remember this is more the beginning of his tenure as the Chief Justice than it is of the end of it. There will be a lot more decisions that will come down the pike, but this was a big punctuation mark, no question about that.
Some conservatives believe actually that he's got the long view here, and they're actually not overly getting mad at him on this, saying, you know, hey, this is going to help him be able to make other conservative decisions, look partisan about it.
Well, I do, who knows what was in his mind. You never can second guess the Supreme Court and understand how they come to the conclusions that they do. But he's a very astute guy, and he knew that there was a rising tide in this country of criticism that it had become a highly partisan court. But at the same time, the decision that he made had sound legal precedent attached to it. He changed it from mandate to tax, which was a clever way of getting around the whole commerce question. So my guess is that at some point in his subconsciousness, if not actively, he was thinking about the reputation of the court as partisan or a judicial ground for fair decisions.
Hey, Bob, is this the bipartisan stamp that healthcare was lacking that's going to somehow sway the middle?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's helpful in the middle because it was a conservative Chief Justice who actually, you know, swung the vote. But for the people who are lined up for or against this law, I don't think it changes many votes there. But on the John Roberts decision thing, I think that he very consciously had his eye on history. I think he was thinking about his legacy, and I think he did not want to be on the wrong side of history when it came to long-term health coverage in the United States. I think that's a big factor.
I have to say, you know, Beth, think about this week where John Roberts, he was in the majority on basically striking down just about all of Arizona, even the part that they upheld. They issued this stern warning, careful. And this, I mean, it wasn't just on this, it was on, he seemed to, at the end of the day, side with federal power.
Yeah, he surprised everybody. I mean, he's one of these justices that conservatives, Republicans cite as, you know, a model for who they would choose if they were to be naming another justice. He's surprising people, but I think what you both have said is accurate. He doesn't want to be viewed as a political partisan. He doesn't want to be viewed as a tool for the Republican Party. He's the Chief Justice. He has to set a legacy, not only for himself, but for this court. And this has got to be a big part of what he was thinking. I'm not sure I agree that he wants to be on the wrong side of where the public is going on health care.
We're all psychoanalyzing him here.
I don't want to move him too far down the road in health care, Bob. I really don't.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Tom.
I think that he found a way around it by getting to the tax issue as opposed to to commerce.
And you could say that he actually threw conservatives a bone by naming it a tax. That's given them a great tool.
Speaking of conservatives, Matthew Continetti wrote this morning that this decision, Bob, is the Tea Party's Roe v. Wade. Right? I thought it was an interesting way of putting it as far as sort of the animation about it.
That may be true, but I think that there are other issues that come up. I mean, this ensures that the health law goes forward. But this is like a complicated, enormous, and I think ultimately very expensive law. So we're going to run into problems. So it's not so much the ruling that the Tea Party or opponents are going to have to hang their hat on. I think that they'll be looking at the reality of health care coverage in this country.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with them on that. This is the beginning of a process. Again, we're kickstarting the health care.
Now it's going to get implemented.
Right.
Right. Now actually has to get it. There was a bunch of states that were holding off.
Right. Exactly.
And Chuck, the difference also with Roe v. Wade is there was so much criticism of what the court did. I didn't notice a lot of that yesterday. The criticism from the right was of the law. It wasn't of what the court did. They really seemed to sidestep that, probably because it was Roberts making the decision. It wasn't a sense of judicial overreach the way Roe v. Wade has been criticized in the past. This was the criticism was strictly of the law and getting rid of the law, not of the process through the court.
3 weeks from now, Tom, will the television ads that Mitt Romney and Barack Obama air have many mentions of health care?
I think that there will be less of a mention on the part of President Obama and more of a mention on the part of Romney. My guess is that they continue to take the temperature of their base, and they're so violently opposed to the idea of the mandate. Raised $3.2 million yesterday right after the decision. Right. One very senior Republican senator said to me, the calls in our office are going 150 to 1 against the mandate. Key states like Ohio, where they had a referendum on it 2 years ago,
right,
it passed by 66% at that time.
Yeah, but you know what? I would suspect that the Obama campaign also raised quite a bit of money yesterday. They made a decision that they weren't going to talk about that they didn't want to make this political. They didn't come out with their number figure. We have no basis for comparison.
I think the bigger issue, really, Chuck, is 3 weeks from now, is how do you put it in the context of the economy?
Well, and that's going to be
that's the big umbrella.
All right. Bob, Brokaw, we were just actually talking at the break about sort of what are the real world implications of this decision, healthcare law? And Tom, you were bringing up the fact that there's a bunch of insurance entities, hospital entities that are actually going to try to just stay ahead of the feds. Explain.
Well, they're operating in overdrive this morning. Healthcare delivery systems, big corporations looking at their plans. How do they fine-tune them so they don't get...
So they can avoid fines, right? And avoid the feds, essentially.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly. They want to get ahead of the curve on this and head off what they think will be a lot of government restrictions on the kind of care that they provide. And they're going to look very carefully, obviously, at pensions and benefit systems within their own company.
And Beth, this is going to be the scary political thing, is sort of how companies do this. If companies sort of suddenly are asking you to give proof of how old your kids are to make sure, because they're going to suddenly realize the cost of adding extra people up to 26 to your business and stuff like that. When companies start doing that to their employees, do they, quote, blame the healthcare, the feds on this one?
Right. Well, I mean, this stuff was probably well in the works before the Supreme Court came out anyway. So
it's been underway for some time.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sure, I mean, there's going to be some aspects of this that are going to be frustrating for people, but let's face it, healthcare has never been particularly popular, just the execution of it in this country anyway. If people can be persuaded, and this is the job of the president and the Democrats perhaps, to persuade people to say, look, there's going to be some complications to this. However, we're getting you to a better goal than what was there before.
And Bob, that seems to be, do you think the Obama campaign is committed to actually try to explain it better, or do you think they're just going to push it?
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think they're just. I still think that the economy is going to be the overwhelming issue in this campaign. When I go around the country, people are not talking about health care. It's an enormous story. This is an historic ruling.
6% though in top issues.
But yeah. And next week there's going to be another jobs number coming out,
That's
and
right.
that'll be the big political story.
Hey, I'm in New York, and I'm stunned by what I just saw. Apparently, I want to put up a graphic here. We showed the Charlie Rangel race is not over. We all thought Charlie Rangel survived. Look at this. There's just over 1,000 votes separate him and Adriano Espaillat, as you can see. And Beth, you were telling me there's still some absentee ballots to be counted. How many ballots are sitting out there? What do we know?
Yeah, unclear, and they're not going to count them till next week. So it's going to be hard for him to overcome 1,000.
That's a lot in a congressional way. It doesn't sound like a lot of votes, but still, Bob, this proves. Had Charlie Rangel not had 5 challengers, I think it was, he had 4 challengers, he'd have lost.
Yeah, the irony of Charlie Rangel is that he stayed too long, and that's how he became a congressman, because Adam Clayton Powell was in a lot of trouble, and he had stayed too long. It's like, you know, just the cycles continue.
Yeah, you know, it is one of those things. The other part of that I always like to point out to people is Charlie Rangel's Harlem. That's not Charlie Rangel's
It's not the same Harlem.
This is a demographic shift.
And by the way, that's emblematic of what's going on in the country.
That's right.
The rising tide of Hispanic voters and the ever more muscular part that they play, not just in congressional elections in Harlem, but across this country.
And the Obama folks will point out, they say health care enormously popular with the Hispanic vote. Shameless plugs. Bob, you first.
The new book, So Rich, So Poor, by Peter Edelman, which addresses the issue of poverty, which we don't talk enough about in this country. 1/3 of American citizens are either poor or a notch or two above the poverty line.
It's a bigger number than people realize, especially in the Acela corridor. Beth.
The AP Supreme Court team, led by Mark Sherman, got the ruling right first yesterday. Bravo.
Very nice.
And on television.
I was just going to say, good. I was good. You didn't do it. I was going to say,
No. You got to hand it to Pete. You know, he was right. And Bush v. Gore.
He did it. That's right.
Night, and he got it right yesterday.
That's why we
and a couple of other cable outlets who shall not go nameless, but you can look it up. Got it wrong.
Banners matter to all our banner riders. We've heard those banners matter. Don't think what you're not doing isn't important and doesn't impact things. That's it for this edition of the Daily Rundown. Have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here Monday. Probably